Welcome to our video series called Industry Viewpoints, brought to you by the American Bankruptcy Institute, an industry expert providing views on the current state of that industry with a focus on what lies ahead. My guest on this edition is Deborah Williamson from the San Antonio office of Dykema Gossett. Ms. Williamson is the head of the firm's business restructuring group. Today, we will be talking with Ms. Williamson about the conditions in the oil and gas industry. And by the way, you should know that Deborah was one of the members of the ABI Commission that recommended reforming the bankruptcy code to meet the needs of the modern business world. Living and working in Texas, the oil and gas industry has been a major focus of Deborah's practice forever. As you can imagine, she has been busy as a beaver since the oil and gas industry went down a year or so ago. Well, tell you what, Deborah, let's start first with where we are right now. Is oil and gas as bad off as it was a year ago?
No, not at all. Gas prices are up significantly year over year. And we're absent some significant change in the regulatory environment. You're seeing a lot less pressure on the gas producers today than you were seeing a year ago. Having said that, as we said before, some of the lenders are not as excited about being in the oil and gas industry as they were. So there's maybe some longer term pressures about finding replacement funding than that existed a year ago. But right now, prices for gas, at least in the markets that I'm dealing with, are up significantly, and companies can make money, can drill profitably and produce profitably.
Are gas prices high enough now for people actually to make a profit, or at least cover the costs?
If you're seeing a lot of emphasis on cost management, you're seeing more discipline around drilling programs. So can you produce at a profit? I believe for most companies, the answer to under the current pricing would be yes. The question is, what are you doing with the revenue and what are you doing with your capital? Are you spending more than you're going to be making, but you can produce profitably? The question is, what do you do for production and what are you doing for drilling?
I see. Well, I can tell you what, there are, of course, many different kinds and types of players in the oil and gas industry. Tell us about what part of the oil and gas industry was hit the hardest and why.
So the oil field service, or OFS, was hit really hard a few years ago. And you saw significant consolidation in the industry and a large number of industry smaller players that dropped out. This time around, the most closer time around, it was primarily the gas producers, who again were hit very hard with the drop in prices. In fact, there was even a day last year, I believe, in which the cost for a few hours, not very long, on the spot market, it was you almost had to pay to offload your gas.
Well, Deborah, let me ask you this. Yeah. Why was gas hit harder than oil?
Well, gas has more issues. There's more gas out there. A lot of the shale plays that you hear about and the fracking generates gas. Gas has more transportation issues. I can put oil in a truck. I can't put natural gas in a truck. And then you had infrastructure issues, the need for pipelines to get the gas to one of the known markets, closer to the refiners or closer to where, not the refiners, closer to where you could transport it. So you have an infrastructure limitation, you have a transportation limitation, and then you had excess production.
I see. But as you said, gas ain't so bad off as it was now a year ago. Is that right?
Exactly right. Prices are better and people are breathing a little better about where they're going and what the projections are.
Well, tell me, what about folks who own the little pipelines that take gas and oil from the fields back to bigger pipelines.
Sure.
How have they fared and what's been going on in the last year?
Well, the little pipelines are well, there's two kinds of little pipelines. So there's pipelines that are built for a specific field. And then there are the major pipelines that you feed into that take them to market. Often when the pipelines are built, there was a lot of concern about, as I said, about infrastructure, about capacity for you to deliver your product. And contracts were signed with what are called the midstreams that are no longer financially advantageous, in which you could basically have you're buying space on capacity on a pipeline. And so you're seeing a lot of focus on renegotiating in the gas space on those pipeline contracts.
Let me stop you for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
You use the word midstream. Does that mean the pipeline owners and operators?
It does. I'm sorry. You've got upstream producing, midstream, and then you've got downstream, which is where it's being used or refined or sold. So midstream is getting it to market.
So what's been happening with these midstream types? Have people been holding guns to their head? Have there been bankruptcy? What's going on?
There have been bankruptcies literally over the midstream contracts and trying to renegotiate them.
Who files bankruptcy? The pipeline owners or the producers?
The producers. The producers file bankruptcy trying to get out of their pipeline contracts or modify them. And so you're seeing those bankruptcies happening. But you're also seeing a lot of quiet out of bankruptcy negotiations that I've been involved in, where you renegotiate those contracts without having to file bankruptcy. And they're smaller cases. They're not the billion-dollar multi-tranche debt cases. But those contracts are considered to be so burdensome that the producing properties have little, if any, value. So if you want to have value for your producing properties, you've got to do something about many of those contracts.
So are you telling me that some owners of midstream companies are going along with restructuring out of bankruptcy?
Some are. If you're reasonable with them and you can understand what their profit margin is or profit goals are, quietly negotiating an exit is something that has worked in a number of cases. Not all of them, of course, but it's worked in a number of cases. But there are some midstreams that are getting much more aggressive too.
Listen, let me ask you about this.
Mm-hmm.
The oil and gas industry at every level is capital intensive.
Yes, it is.
Is there enough money around these days for investment?
For investment, well, there's a number of lenders, often traditional financial institutions that have announced that they're out of the oil and gas industry. Yeah.
Really?
No, we're not going to loan to you guys anymore. And they're getting notice a year or more out saying, you need to plan on moving this loan. We are not going to renew it.
Why is that?
I guess they just don't enjoy the roller coaster as much as they used to. So they're getting out of the industry. But you may have other players coming in, more on the private equity or the hedge fund side or whatever. But you're also seeing where, if you noticed, a lot of the more recent oil and gas deals have been a deleveraging, not a restructuring, but a deleveraging, where the equity, unfortunately, get little, if anything. And you have entities coming in and buying the debt because they believe these are opportunities to step into what may be valuable in the future. But it is more difficult. And one of the things that you'll hear companies talk about now is that their focus is not on drilling and holding new leases, but managing their capital spend to their revenue and not trying to increase their debt with their capital spend. And there were times when that wasn't the case.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
You suppose there's going to come a time when some of those lenders who got out of the business are going to come back in?
Well, they have in the past. I mean, I think you could, for some of these companies, you could track their oil and gas lending businesses by the oil and gas booms. When the fees get paid and the fees get high, you might have some more interest coming in. But right now, the institutional lenders are kind of, they're getting told that your people should go find another job,
Well, that's
unfortunately for those people.
Well, listen, let me ask you this, Deborah. What, if anything, has been different about this last recession in the oil and gas industry compared with those that seem to have come every 5 or 10 years previously?
The numbers are much bigger. I mean, the number of billion-dollar companies, $1 billion debt is unprecedented. We didn't have that before. You're also seeing, less reorganization. I said more, just all you're doing is deleveraging your balance sheet. You're also seeing, which is very interesting, it's happened several times now, where a company will file bankruptcy, literally so it can either sell itself to another company or buy another company to clean up the balance sheet. So right now, you're hearing is the focus on balance sheet, the focus is on cash flow, the focus is on managing capital expenditures, and less so, and selling assets, but less selling assets right now unless they're non-core assets. You hear phrases like, we're focusing on our core assets, we're focusing on our capital spend, we're focusing on our cash flow. And as opposed to going in to try to sell assets, it's just different this time.
Well, Deborah, that is really fascinating. It just shows you that nothing remains the same except change. And I thank you for this really fascinating analysis and your thoughts about the oil and gas industry. And we look forward to seeing how that industry fares in the next couple of years. As will be the fodder for upcoming ABI events and publications. To find out, have a look at the abi.org website for the latest updates. Thank you for tuning in. In the Industry Viewpoints series in upcoming days and weeks, we will have talks with other experts about the future of industries that are affected by our turbulent economic times. Until then, be well, stay safe. See you soon. Good day.
Thank you.